So far in our study of Psalm 91, we've looked at the first three verses. In the first two verses, we saw different examples of how God is a protection to us. He's like a shadow, he's like a refuge, a fortress. Now, in those two verses, it doesn't actually describe what God is protecting us from. We have to infer it. We have to realize that, if he's like a shadow, it's probably from the sun, or a fortress from perhaps an invading army, or a refuge from those who are chasing us, trying to do us harm. But then in verse 3 that we looked at yesterday, we first see an example of what God is protecting us from, in this case, the snare of the fowler and the deadly pestilence, which we didn't really talk about, but we'll probably talk about more tomorrow. Today, the scripture goes back looking at how God is a protection to us. So I want to read verse 4 to you now. He will cover you with his pinions, and under his wings you will find refuge. His faithfulness is a shield and a buckler. Now, this is pretty cool. It's talking about how God covers us with his pinions. Now, you might be thinking, what are pinions? We can just think of it like wings. It's the outer part of the wing. But it's basically, in this case, easy enough to understand as a synonym for wing. So he covers you with his wings, and under his wings, you will find refuge. Now, you might be thinking, but wings, those aren't really that protective. It's not like a fortress that's mighty and powerful. But see, the idea here is not that the wing is so protective, but rather that the one who has the wing over you also has mighty, powerful talons and a beak and can tear predators to shreds. And so think of like the mighty hawk or an eagle that's huge, but the chicks are small and they're vulnerable. But he or she, the eagle, the adult, puts their wing over those chicks. And when the predator wants to come steal the chicks, it sees that the mighty, larger bird is there and it doesn't want to mess with that. And so in this illustration, it's not that we're powerful. As a matter of fact, we're seen as quite vulnerable. We are at risk in this case. There is danger out there, and there are times that Christians can come to harm. But when the Father puts his wing over us, then the enemy doesn't want to mess with us, because the enemy sees that we have great protection. Not because we're powerful, not because the wing is frightening, but because the one who has the wing is frightening to those who stand against him. What I love about this, it made me think about the times as a child that I was perhaps afraid of the dark and just having those fears at night of being alone and wanting to go crawl in bed with mom and dad. And it wasn't that I thought that there was actually a real danger. I wasn't worried about someone outside. It wasn't like I knew someone was trying to break in. And it wasn't that I thought my parents were some kind of amazing superheroes. They didn't know karate. They didn't necessarily have great self-defense skills, but that's not what mattered to me. What mattered to me was being in the presence of someone who loved me, who I knew cared about me and wanted the best for me. And as a child, that's all that mattered, because frankly, I didn't understand the threats of the world. I didn't understand the dangers that were out there or how strong my parents were versus other people that might be bad people trying to get into my house. All I knew is that when I cuddled into bed, when I snuggled against them under their arm, that they cared about me. And they were going to do whatever they could to make me safe and happy and cared for. And so in the same way we draw near to God, Hebrews 11 says that he rewards those who seek him. He loves us. He wants to take care of us. He has a desire to be with us. Jesus says that he'll go with us even to the ends of the earth. He was with us in person on this earth, but now he's with us even to the ends of the earth. He's present. His Spirit is with us. He doesn't abandon us. And actually, that's what the verse goes on to say. I love this next part. His faithfulness is a shield and a buckler. A buckler is a kind of shield that either attaches to your forearm or you hold in your hand, a small shield. But this is the only time that this word in Hebrew is ever used in the whole Bible. So translators are a little bit unsure of what it really means, and some believe it actually means a wall or a tower. So his faithfulness is a shield and a wall, perhaps. Regardless, what it's telling us is that God's faithfulness is a protection to us. But what does that mean, his faithfulness? You see, God is faithful to his word and to his promises. The New Testament tells us that even when we are faithless, he is faithful because he cannot deny himself. You see, with the things God has promised to you, and there's tons of promises in the Bible. You can go and you can Google promises of God or promises in the Bible, and you'll find all sorts of things that God promises, and he is faithful to you. He says he's not going to abandon you. He won't abandon you. And so we can have that opportunity to, like that little chick, just to snuggle up close to God. I know that may sound a little funny, but it's we draw near to him, and it's not that we even understand the threats. Yeah, right now we understand there's the threat of a pandemic, but there's threats all the time, and a lot of times we don't even realize threats that are around us, but he knows. but we don't focus on the threat. We don't focus on the problem. We focus on the provider. And in this case, we focus on just growing close to God, getting near him, and knowing that he cares about us. And he wants the best for us. And sometimes bad things happen to people that follow God, but only if he allows it, and only if it's ultimately the best thing and what matters most. And you know what? Eternally, he's got our soul in his hands. And so I just encourage you, take time to refresh yourself in the promises of God. Take time to become like a child again, as he tells us to have the faith of a child, and just draw near to God and take great comfort in knowing that as we draw near to him, he loves you. He cares about you. He has your best interest in mind, and he knows better than you do what dangers are out there and what's best ultimately in the long run for you and for those you love and care about.